I made a video a few months ago. Where do I want to go with this channel? In it, I described I wanted to do some builds, some various different builds and experimenting and stuff like that. And I had made a gnomon that I could clip onto a clipboard and mark on a piece of paper where the sun's shadow was throughout the day, and then basically use that throughout the year to track the sun's movement across the sky throughout the year. And in that video, I had made a reference to several other videos that I wanted to make. One of them was to describe the build process of that gnomon and the various problems and challenges that I encountered along the way. The other video that I wanted to make was to just review the observations that I had made and to show how the observations that I made match the various models that are available online, and that it would support the other projects that I had in mind. So there's one project that I think I'm going to fast track based on this tweet from Bob the Science Guy talking about the analemma, or at least I think he should be, because when I went to watch the video it wasn't available. But that is not the point of this particular discussion. So I was going to be putting out those videos, and then Bob started talking about gyro compasses and how a gyro compass is designed to track towards true north, and the fact that it will realign itself back to true north no matter where you are in the world points to the fact that the earth itself rotates. And I thought that would be a really cool project to see if I could make myself a gyro compass. So I put those other projects aside to start a gyro compass build. Now, I encountered a few problems along the way, and I'm still working some of these out. So I think what I'm going to do is put that aside to go back to working on some of these other projects that I want to build. Now, I have yet to make those videos that I wanted to make, and I originally wanted to make them before starting the builds. But coming back to the analemma that Bob was talking about, I think it would be a good idea for me to put those aside as well, and just to actually start doing a build. And I'm kind of thinking of doing that now because I'm on vacation, and it looks like there's going to be a few good days of sunshine for me to test it out and to actually make sure that it works properly. But I'm going to put these videos out before I even get conclusive proof that it works, at least where I live. But I'm probably going to be putting out videos, several videos in the coming days and weeks on the first of the three builds that I have in mind. So I actually have three completely separate builds that are somewhat unrelated to each other. And I'm going to start with the first one. So here's the first one. I'm going to leave a link in the description below that lets you put in your latitude, specify whether you're in the northern or southern hemisphere, and then it'll generate a PDF that you can print out. And then you just fold on the lines, and you can create yourself a paper-based sundial. And one thing that's evident with this application or this website is that when you change the latitude, the angle of the hour markers will shift and change based on your latitude. So let's say this one here represents something that's, I don't know, maybe I'm just throwing a number out there. Let's say maybe it's at 10 degrees latitude. If you change it to 70 degrees, what it's gonna look like is gonna be they're gonna be a lot tighter together, and that the overall angle here from sunrise to sunset will be much more will be much less if it's something like maybe 70 or 60 degrees. So a sundial is region specific. So I would not be able to create a file that can be 3D printed and be able to be accurate anywhere in the world. It would only be accurate for a certain range around my latitude. That would also then confuse the issue as to whether or not you can have something universal that proves that it works on a round earth or that it would work on a flat earth. So my goal is to create something that anybody in the world can 3D print, or that I could have one design that works anywhere in the world. And the way what I thought of was to print something or to design something that's based on the Earth's rotation. What I plan to do is to design something that can be mounted on a tripod by using the tripod to polar align it. Anywhere in the world you could end up using this and still have it accurate. So my design is to have a device that rotates on an axis that when you align it to match the Earth's axis of rotation, by rotating this device, you can then realign it to counteract the Earth's rotation throughout that day and be able to measure the time. It's a very simple device. It's going to require moving parts. My goal is to have a device that works universally anywhere in the world. I do not want to have something that is region or location specific. And the only one, there's actually a second design that I have in mind, but the first design is a very simple device, and it simply involves a rotating disc or to match the seasons, and because the sun declinates throughout the year, that I'm going to, for the first design, uh, use a drum. So my idea is to create a drum that's kind of like, it's almost a full complete drum, but it's probably just going to be two half circles with a bit of a slit at the top and a bit of a slit at the bottom. And if this here is the center shaft that rotates, then as you spin this back and forth, if the sun is in this direction, for example, then it'll create a shadow, or it'll create a shaft of light that strikes here, and obviously it will not come out through to the bottom. But if I rotate it in this direction and then realign it, it would eventually shine through the whole thing, and then I can gauge the alignment this way by measuring whether it's just a sliver of light, no light at all, or if it's the maximum width. And if I make it a drum deep enough, then if this is the equinox and these are the solstices, that at the maximum declination, there's enough depth to the drum that I can capture the full thing without anything missing. The summer declination may not necessarily need to be as deep, but the winter declination would have to be if, for example, it's not wide enough, then if it's only this wide, if it's only this deep and it comes in at this angle, I may not have enough to capture the full thing. So that's basically where I plan, or that's what I plan to do in the coming days. I'm going to start with iteration number 1. Hopefully I'll get it working reasonably well. If not, I'm going to come up with iteration number 2 and or 3 and or 4, and I'll keep changing the process or keep changing the design until I get something that is reasonable. In the meantime, if anybody else is interested, I will make the files available. Anybody will be able to download the files, and if they have access to a 3D printer, they can print their own and do something similar themselves. And this particular design will be able to measure the analemma in an indirect sort of way. It may not necessarily be able to show a figure 8 pattern like this, but one thing that it could do is you could use it to measure when the sun crosses the zenith, and then by noting the time you can then put that, let's say, maybe in a spreadsheet, and instead of a graph that looks like this, you could say, well, if this here is the season, this could represent the hour in the day, and this would be local solar noon, and then this would represent so many minutes past solar noon. This would be so many minutes before solar noon, and you could kind of measure something in a slightly indirect way like that. So that's what I plan to do, and I think the next video will start the design, and I'll probably put out 1 or 2 or 3 videos that show how I go about designing each of the pieces. Then I'll print them out. Hopefully I'll be able to do that today. Tomorrow should be a cloudless day, and then I'll be able to use that throughout the day to play around with the alignment and make sure that everything works reasonably well, and describe the process. And if anybody has a 3D printer and they are so inclined, they'll be able to just download the parts or to download the plans and print it out and test it out locally. That's where I am. I'm just gonna get on with the first build video.